Let's dive into things, Jim. Corn prices were finally starting to see momentum this week. We had 3 consecutive days of corn trading higher. And then late Wednesday, we had President Trump post on his Truth Social that Coca-Cola has agreed to switch from using high fructose corn syrup in their products to cane sugar. How did the markets react to that news?
Well, if you're wondering why farmers are so concerned about their farm finances right now, they really just can't catch a break. It's not just because corn prices are below break even. For most, it's the fact input prices are so high. The American Corn Belt is collapsing, and most people still do not realize it. For generations, the United States was the undisputed king of corn. Chris, I do want to start with the tariffs that Carol mentioned because that's the freshest news that we got from the president. He did say that the U.S. will impose tariffs on external agricultural products starting on April 2nd. So, that's something that we were watching really, really closely because obviously Mexico is the top corn destination and Canada is our top ethanol destination. And so we're pretty concerned about, how those countries might react to those tariffs, The U.S. has lost the corn crown. We've been the world's top exporter of corn for just about every single year in history. From Iowa to Indiana, from the banks of the Mississippi to the Great Plains, American corn was the staple that fed the world. But now, it is not even feeding itself. Corn prices have plummeted, fields lie soaked in rain with combines parked idle, grain once worth millions of dollars is being turned away at ports. In Shelby County, Iowa, corn piles up in bins with no one to buy it. And at the exact same moment, Canada is sealing billion-dollar supply deals with Japan, South Korea, and the European Union. This is not just a price crash, it is a transfer of power. And if it continues, it could wipe out thousands of farms, shutter rural economies, and fracture the most iconic agricultural chain in the United States. So, what just happened? Let us pull apart the entire system. YouTube is not the biggest fan of content like this, but we believe people deserve to hear the truth. If you agree, hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us beat the algorithm and keep going. We really appreciate the support. Corn prices are now hovering around $3.50 per bushel. That is well below the break-even point for most farmers. But the deeper crisis is not price alone. It is that the cost of staying in the game has skyrocketed. On March 14, 2025, the Federal Grain Inspection Service issued Directive 9180.40. It raised the pesticide residue testing fee from $57 to $81 per sample. That is a 40% hike in a single season for every corn lot leaving the country. This test is mandatory. No green certificate, no export. Simple as that. Combine that with a White House tariff policy that now charges up to $1.5 million per trip on China-built cargo vessels. That decision alone raised Gulf of Mexico shipping costs by 25%. According to port data, grain export expenses are up $930 million per year. The result, barges stalled, berths clogged, exporters pulling contracts. More than 180 vessels sat anchored off New Orleans without movement in early spring. Iowa corn soaked, Indiana grain blackened. Every bushel waiting for a ship loses 27 cents just by standing still. And this is only one side of the equation. Because while the United States piled on paperwork and cost, the rest of the world changed the rules. In February 2025, Mexico banned genetically modified corn. So here's an interesting development. Asia and Europe have followed suit by embedding similar standards into their feed contract. Did you know that 92% of U.S. corn acreage is genetically modified? Yeah, that means it's now off the white list. Canada, however, saw this coming from a mile away. They're using their Prairie Trace blockchain to tag every grain lot from seed to ship. It's all traceable, certified, and clean. No GMO, no glyphosate, and it meets the carbon standards set by the European Union RED II protocol. So here's the thing, this is what importers want now, not just grain. They want a story and a guarantee. And that is exactly why Canadian corn in Manitoba is selling at $4.20 per bushel, while American corn in Cedar Rapids sits at $3.74. That 20% premium isn't because Canadian corn is tastier, it's because, well, it's just safer to buy. Meanwhile, American silos are overflowing. The United States Department of Agriculture estimates that more than 2.5 billion bushels of corn will remain unsold by the end of September. That's actually the largest stockpile in 6 years. Reuters reports that some families are holding back up to 90% of their crop, hoping for prices to rebound. But hope does not pay interest. In the background, harvest costs in Iowa now top $165 per acre. Some farmers are selling their John Deere 660 combines on Craigslist. Others are, driving Uber at night. It's not a metaphor, it's survival. And, well, this crisis is now dragging everything else with it. The Indiana State Economic Council says the economy beneath the Corn Belt shrank 6.1% in the first quarter of 2025. That is actually the second largest drop in the nation. With income gone, food aid requests in rural counties have exploded. The Food Bank of Indiana says requests are up 50% from the previous year. Meanwhile, a federal budget cut proposal threatens to erase 133 million meals from the system. Schools in rural Illinois are switching to 3-day weeks to conserve power. Nebraska is rationing irrigation water to 13 inches per acre. Co-ops have halted grain purchases because, well, the bins are full. And in Hastings, Nebraska, one diner shut down its kitchen before 6 o'clock every evening. There are no customers. This is what they are calling a zombie economy. Buildings still stand, but cash flow is dead. The final blow may be ethanol. According to the Energy Information Administration, Midwest ethanol plants are now running at 87.8% of capacity. 25 plants have gone offline. That's 1.26 billion gallons of capacity just sitting idle. In Columbus, Nebraska, Valero cuts 60% of its night shifts. 120 jobs gone just like that. This isn't just about corn, it's really about a collapse of confidence in the entire agricultural chain. And Canada is quietly writing a new script. Export Development Canada now offers credit insurance for single-lot exports. It covers up to 50% of cold chain logistics to protect carbon certification. The CSKOA agreement with South Korea flung the door wide open for Canadian organic grain. Grain Farmers of Ontario reports old crop basis premiums between $130 and $187 above Chicago Board of Trade futures. New crop contracts are fetching $149 more per bushel. Canada's not just selling corn, it is selling certainty. And that is why, Asian feed mills are shifting contracts north. Even the Rotterdam desk now lists Canadian full corn shipments at 18% premiums over United States offers. And U.S. grain ships in the Gulf dropped 14% compared to last year. Meanwhile, up in Canada, they're strategically routing empty shipping containers through Vancouver into the American Midwest. They're really taking advantage of those lower backhaul rates. The map is changing, folks, and the market, well, it's definitely voting with its wallet. If Washington doesn't step in, this problem, oh boy, it won't just stop at corn. You see, 92% of soybean acreage is also genetically modified. So Europe has already excluded American soy from its low-carbon list. From there, it spreads to dairy. Feed costs climb, small farms collapse. Beef is next. Corn-fed cattle will face higher carbon taxes than their Canadian and Australian counterparts, both of whom have committed to net zero by 2030. At this point, the United States has two choices. First, roll back tariffs on clean tech, open pathways for blockchain traceability, align carbon rules with global partners, or double down, keep tariffs, keep inspection delays, and rely on subsidies. That was the same strategy that gutted the Rust Belt rail economy 3 decades ago. Now the Midwest is at the same crossroad. The question is not whether corn prices will recover. It is whether entire towns will disappear before they do. Let us know what you think in the comments. And do not forget to subscribe to Autone and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest political economic updates.